NewGenGamers.com.
They made a partnership with Nintendo to use this technology to create video games. So Nintendo bought a 25% stake in Rare. So the company came together with a partnership with Silicon Graphics Incorporated to use their workstations to develop these amazing games at the time. So what they did was they created CGI models and characters the way that we see in pretty much any other 3D game today, but it's not actually a 3D game. They just created the characters, created the background using CGI imaging, and then basically just layered it like a traditional video game and just motion captured the animation sets and everything just the way you would a normal sprite. And it was revolutionary. No one had seen graphics on a home system like that before. And I remember seeing the wireframes and just, I'd never heard of that technology before that they could do that. And it was just amazing. I mean, I was very young at the time, so...
Well, something that I thought was really interesting was the fact that when Donkey Kong Country originally came out, they marketed it as basically a 32X killer against Sega, who would come out with numerous add-ons at that point. And the fact that their game, just running on the console, could do better graphics than their Sega system could do with add-ons kind of really solidified the race for them.
And even more on top of that was the fact that it was fun.
Yeah, it was.
That makes a huge difference.
It's a really good game.
So what happened was Rare, with this great game design concept, teamed up with Nintendo. Nintendo said, well, you know, we want to try this new type of graphic styling, but let's use an existing license. Let's take something that we haven't used for years and maybe reinvent it. Maybe Donkey Kong?
Why not?
Why not? We hadn't seen much of Donkey Kong beyond the Super Game Boy Donkey Kong game that we were discussing earlier. And so they pulled Donkey Kong out of the closet and gave him a little buddy with a red cap. And so that was not meant to be the way it sounded, but whatever. And
it's a bit of an inside joke.
And so there you go. And
Donkey Kong's out of the closet now.
Donkey Kong came out of the closet, and basically they just made a platforming game. You know, they made a really good platforming game with a lot of fun secrets in the level, great design, fun enemies, fun characters, and just all around a great time. And this is the sequel to that, and there really isn't anything significantly majorly different that we can talk about. You know, there's some aesthetic things.
Yeah.
You've got the girl character. Donkey Kong is not in this one.
He has been captured.
He's been captured, of course. So now Diddy has to save him and brings along his good friend Dixie Kong, who can whip her hair around and fly through the air.
Dixie was his sister. I was never sure on that. I never got into the story.
I believe that's Dixie.
Yeah. I believe it's his sister, isn't it?
I'm not sure exactly how that works in the Kong family, and they really extended the Donkey Kong franchise with this too, because before Donkey Kong was just Donkey Kong, and now all of a sudden you had these other side characters. They eventually made a cartoon series out of it, made some fiction books about it,
some
tie-ins, lots of tie-ins and merchandising, follow-up games on the Nintendo 64 from Rare.
Donkey Kong 64 was pretty good.
Yeah, and they also had Donkey Kong Country 3 for the Super NES. So they really hoard this thing out after it took off, but it was really a gamble.
And Donkey Kong Country 3 was actually one of the last games put out on the Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
It came out late 96, maybe early 97.
It came out late. And they also took these to the Game Boy, which was interesting because they put them on the original Game Boy hardware. and still kept the 3D modeling, and it was really impressive looking. Like some of the best original Game Boy games graphically were the Donkey Kong. I'm not sure if they were. I think they were Donkey Kong Land.
Yeah, Donkey Kong Land.
And they were amazing. So
oh crap.
They really pushed the hardware, and that's what Rare did. They really pushed the hardware, and the Stampers did a great job with that company.
I'm kind of liking this game. It's a little bit better than the first one.
Yeah, it's refined.
I may have to actually download this. So I was thinking about it on the Virtual Console. So I got some points.
Ray always has some points.
Well, yeah.
Ray lives in debt to Nintendo. They actually pay him to...
They should.
Actually, Ray's a slave is actually what it comes down to. He's paying them to talk about his stuff, but that's what we're here for. So, what else do we want to talk about? We were talking right before we started this game about the competition for having the better games. The competition between the Sega Genesis and the Super Nintendo was intense, and we hadn't seen that since probably the Intellivision, ColecoVision, Atari war, and it was direct head to head. It got dirty.
It was one of the most heated races of the entire, pretty much the entire history of the industry.
And another huge factor that will definitely lead into our next generation is the fact that Sega got some of the third-party stuff onto the system early on, much against Nintendo's will, and because Nintendo wanted everything that was on a Nintendo system to be exclusive on a Nintendo system. And of course, many companies saw the opportunity to sell a game across multiple systems to, you know, hedge your bets. Hey, if there's 20 million of one system and 40 million of all systems, I can sell a lot more on a user base of 40 million than 20 million.
Exactly.
So
business.
So companies kept pushing until finally they got around Nintendo legally, and just by saying screw you, we're going to do it. And so that's when the war really heated up, because then you saw the exclusives, then you saw the games that were on both systems that you could look at comparatively, and really gave Nintendo a run for their money and forced them to try and innovate. Unfortunately, what they tried to do was prepare for a console war against Sega for the next generation, but Sega was not going to be there for very long.
Sega wasn't their main competitor.
Yeah, Sega made too many missteps around this time that they really weren't competition, and Nintendo would face a new competitor.
One of the main missteps that Sega made was a lack of consumer confidence after all the add-on debacle.
Yeah, and again, as we talked about, the Super Nintendo had legs right within the cartridges they had. They had them built so that they could have hardware built right onto the chip, which these ones do, the Super FX games do, that allowed them to be larger and in grander scale than was originally intended for the Super Nintendo system. And the Sega went about doing that by releasing several $100 peripherals that didn't have much support. Yeah, it did not pan out for them, and essentially killed the company on the hardware end.
Yeah,
Yeah, too many of them, and they didn't work well. They, you know.
Yeah.
Together.
Which we'll take a look at the Sega debacle as
we cover the Genesis and you know, CD32X Tower of Terror.
DJGamers.com.